Most people think someone being threatened by you looks dramatic, but the truth is far quieter and far more revealing. The paradox is this: the more powerful you become, the more subtle the reactions you trigger, and the easier they are to miss unless you know what to look for. Threat doesn't announce itself. It leaks through micro behaviors, nervous system glitches, and identity fractures that happen before the person even realizes they're reacting to you. This video will show you the silent indicators, the ones that expose insecurity, envy, intimidation, and psychological displacement without a single word being spoken. Once you learn these signals, you'll see them everywhere, especially in people who pretend to be confident. And once you see them, you can't go back to the old way of reading people. The first silent indicator is micro-stillness, the sudden freeze that happens when someone's nervous system registers you as a threat. Their body stops moving for a fraction of a second, as if recalibrating its strategy around your presence. This isn't respect. It's assessment. The instinctive pause predators and prey both make when something unexpected enters their space. If someone goes still when you walk into a room, they're not relaxed, they're calculating. They're trying to figure out whether you're above them, below them, or in their way. And that calculation always reveals fear. Another indicator is forced neutrality, the overly controlled expression people use when they don't want you to see their real reaction. Their face becomes smooth, their voice becomes flat, their posture becomes artificially calm. This is not emotional maturity, it's emotional suppression. They're hiding the spike of insecurity your presence triggered. When someone tries too hard to appear unaffected, it's because they're deeply affected. And the effort itself is the tell. Watch their eyes, because the eyes betray threat faster than anything else. Someone who feels threatened will avoid direct eye contact, but not in the shy, downward glance, way more in the quick, darting, scanning way of someone checking for exits. Their eyes flick to the side, then back to you, then away again, as if their brain is running threat assessment software. They're not looking at you, they're looking around you. They're trying to figure out how much space you take up and how much of their identity you're about to disrupt. The eyes always reveal the truth before the mouth does. A subtle but powerful indicator is conversational overcorrection. Someone who feels threatened will either over-explain themselves or under-explain, depending on their wiring. Over-explainers try to justify everything they say, hoping to avoid judgment. Under-explainers give clipped, minimal responses, hoping to avoid exposure. Both patterns reveal the same thing. Your presence destabilizes their internal hierarchy. And destabilization always precedes defensive behavior. People who feel threatened often mirror you too closely, but not in the natural rapport-building way. Their mirroring is delayed, stiff, and slightly exaggerated, as if they're trying to match your energy to avoid being outshined. This is subconscious mimicry, a survival strategy rooted in appeasement. They think that if they become more like you, you'll see them as less of a threat. But the very act of forced mirroring reveals their insecurity. Confident people don't copy, they calibrate. Another silent indicator is microaggression disguised as humor. Someone who feels threatened will make small, harmless jokes that carry a sharp edge, hoping to level the playing field without appearing confrontational. They'll tease your confidence, your choices, your success, or your personality under the guise of being playful. But the intention isn't connection, it's containment. They're trying to shrink you just enough to feel safe again. And humor is their camouflage. Watch for unnecessary competition, especially in conversations that don't require it. Someone who feels threatened will turn everything into a comparison, a subtle one-up, a quiet attempt to reclaim status. They'll mention their achievements, their connections, their experiences, even when it's irrelevant. This isn't confidence, it's compensation. They're trying to reassert dominance in a space where your presence has disrupted their internal ranking. And compensation is always a sign of fear. A more advanced indicator is conversational redirection. When someone feels threatened, they'll subtly shift the topic away from anything that highlights your strengths. They'll interrupt, pivot, or downplay your point not because they disagree, but because your competence makes them uncomfortable. They're trying to regain control of the narrative, and narrative control is a form of psychological self-protection. The redirection itself is the confession. People who feel threatened often display micro-defensiveness, the tiny shifts in posture that signal internal retreat. Their shoulders pull in, their arms cross, their feet angle away, even if their face is smiling. These are not random movements. They're the body's way of creating distance without leaving the interaction. The nervous system is saying, I need space from this person, and the body obeys long before the mind admits why. Distance is always a sign of discomfort. Another silent indicator is selective silence. Someone who feels threatened won't challenge you directly, but they also won't support you. They'll stay quiet at key moments, withholding validation, agreement, or enthusiasm. This isn't neutrality. It's passive resistance. They're trying to avoid giving you more power by refusing to acknowledge your influence. Silence becomes their shield. People who feel threatened often shift into subtle blame-shifting, even when nothing is wrong. They'll imply you're intense, intimidating, or too much, framing your presence as the problem. This is projection, a psychological defense mechanism that allows them to avoid confronting their own insecurity. They're not actually describing you. They're describing how they feel around you, and the accusation is the admission. Projection is always a mirror. Another indicator is energy withdrawal. Someone who feels threatened will pull back their warmth, their engagement, their curiosity, as if conserving emotional resources. They become colder, quieter, more distant, not because they dislike you, but because your presence activates their self-protection instincts. They're trying to minimize vulnerability. And vulnerability feels dangerous when someone perceives you as more powerful. Withdrawal is the nervous system's retreat. Watch for micro-interruptions, the tiny breaks in conversation where someone cuts you off just enough to disrupt your flow. These interruptions aren't about misunderstanding. They're about control. They're trying to re-establish dominance by inserting themselves into your rhythm. It's a subtle power play, often delivered with a smile. But the intention is always the same. Reduce your influence by breaking your momentum. And momentum is what threatens them most. The final indicator is identity distortion, the way someone subtly changes who they are around you. They may become more agreeable, more guarded, more performative, or more critical, depending on their wiring. But the shift itself is the signal. Your presence forces them into a version of themselves they don't normally inhabit. And when someone can't stay authentic around you, it's because your energy disrupts their internal hierarchy. If you want to go deeper into decoding these patterns and mastering the identity structures that make you unreadable and unshakable, my courses and workbooks are built for exactly that kind of transformation.